In the last couple minutes, I just want to say what this image of the clown is all about that I put up here last week. It was the last image. I never got to it, but I'll tell you what this is. And it's a story I don't know if I've told. I may have mentioned it in an interview or two. I really haven't gotten into it much here on What on Earth is Happening. But I emailed a dark occultist that I worked with in the past back in, I believe it was early '08, after I had kind of begun my lecture series and the whole truth movement and 9/11 truth movement was picking up a little bit of steam, and people seemed to me to be waking up. I put seemed in, I'm doing double air quotes right now. But things seemed to be progressing back then, at least to me anyway. That was my perception of it. And I asked him, and it's meaningless for me to even drop this person's name because you won't know who it is. It's a dark occultist who lives on the East Coast. That's really all anyone needs to know. I sent him an email and asked him, I forget exactly how I worded it. What I really wanted to say is, what do your owners think about what's going on with the truth movement or with the freedom movement? But I didn't use the word owners, like, because in all honesty, he's never done anything to truly insult me or to be vicious toward me. I know he still works in the dark occult hierarchy, okay, and still has that mindset and heart set, if you will, still feels the same way, still thinks the same way, still lives the same way. He has not had an awakening in conscience in any way, shape, or form. May be a genetic psychopath for all I know. But basically had decent conversations with him and was treated respectfully when I was involved in the Church of Satan and attended certain functions where he was present. So I just said, what do the higher-ups, I think was the word that I used, what do they think about the truth and freedom movement of what's going on? And in the dark occult, when they don't really want to be bothered with you, they'll often just answer you with a symbol or an image. Well, he didn't send back any words. He hit reply on the email and sent back this image, a JPEG that he probably just found on the web someplace, of a clown, as a response to my question of, what do the dark occult think of the truth and freedom movement? A clown dressed in a polka dot suit with a frilly, a neck piece and frilly arm pieces and, a multicolored afro wig and, a hat and a party horn and the big floppy clown shoes. That was the answer. And to this day, 4 years later, I wish I could say that he's wrong. But in a lot of ways, I can't. Because people still do not understand the why of what they're doing. Move to that enigmatic image that I started describing at the end of the show last week, this image of a clown in a wacky suit with big clown shoes and a horn, okay, and a multicolored wig. I was explaining a story about a few years back, after I began speaking and giving presentations. I contacted a Satanist that I used to work with when I was a priest within the Church of Satan. And again, I said, for me to give his name is meaningless because no one would know who he is anyway. He's not a known figure. He's just an individual that I encountered while affiliated with that group, with that organization. And I sent an email after my awakening and subsequent leaving the dark occult and starting to speak on these topics. And I asked him, what do your masters, I didn't say it that way to him, but for lack of a better term, that's really what I was asking him. What do the people who still own you, because I know you're still involved in Satanism and the dark occult, I think I just worded it as, what do the higher-ups, quote unquote, or the people above you in the hierarchy, think of the, quote, truth movement, the truth and freedom movement, in double quotes, okay? And in the occult, when someone isn't really taking your question even seriously or is brushing you off, very often you'll just be given a symbol or an image, as opposed to them taking any time to write any thoughts out or even speak any thoughts to you. It's almost like a subtle form of dismissal or laughing at you. Okay? This is an image he emailed me back with no words. He sent this image of a clown back to me, saying that that's what they think of the, quote, truth and freedom movements. And I left the show, I went off the air last week on a dark note, saying that I cannot tell anyone that this is untrue. I cannot disagree with that statement. At the risk of offending my own audience and anyone who takes the, quote, truth and freedom movements very to heart and seriously, I cannot tell anyone that I disagree with his assessment, or what I should say is his owner's assessment, okay? The real dark occultists who are really still controlling the game. I cannot tell you that their assessment is incorrect. Passio. I was describing this strange image that I was sent by a Satanist years ago when I asked him what the higher level dark occultists that he still works for thought about the, quote, truth and freedom movement. And I continue to say, quote, truth and freedom movement because it has not really truly blossomed into a true truth movement or a true freedom movement. It is the semblance of one. Okay? It's the quote, truth and freedom movement in a guise. It's the guise of truth and freedom. It's people who say this is what they want, but when they're really pressed to go down to the cause of why what is happening is in fact occurring, they are absolutely clueless to explain it because they don't have the understanding of natural law in hand. And they want freedom for themselves more than anything else. You know, they don't want freedom for all. It isn't about true care. It isn't really about truth to them. That's the whole problem. See, what in the equation truth, love, freedom, that's the order that it has to take place in. You're never going to get freedom until you go through truth and care, true care. Not mushy Hollywood and romance novel depictions of love. True self-respect, true self-knowledge, true self-mastery. And you're never going to get to that unless you understand the truth about why what is happening is occurring. You need to get down to the causes. Forget about dealing in the realm of effects. And unfortunately, the quote, truth and freedom movement bickers among itself. And this is, again, I want to make it very clear here. This is not what I am doing. I am not bickering and pointing out things other people, specific people are doing wrong and saying, you need to do this, you need to do that. I'm talking about overarching attitudes, overarching ways of seeing things that is continuing to hold us back because there's no unity. See, these dark occultists have unity. The universe is always going to respect unity, even if it's for ill purposes, for ill will, done in the name of evil. People have a hard time with that concept. Why else would they be defeating us? Why else would they be winning? And they are winning. The people who think we're winning this battle are delusional, absolutely delusional. I don't know what they're seeing. They're seeing the tiny cracks of awakening happening and thinking it's some massive flood of light pouring into the world. And it's not. There's a few people who really understand this dynamic from the level of causality. A handful. And who are attempting to convey that to people. Everyone else is focused on infighting, trying to disprove this person's theory of how the towers were taken down, and then saying anybody who says anything other way is an agent, disinfo agent. Bickering about religion, bickering about race, bickering about any thing that divides people or separates them. And that's what they're doing, creating more divisiveness. Not creating unity, not getting down to the real causes, certainly never talking about natural law. There's a handful of people on the earth that discuss this topic. There's a handful of people on the earth who really understand it. That's why. And this is what the dark occultists know. They know this, ladies and gentlemen. They know this definitively. They know this is how it is. And I can't say that they're wrong about this. I can't tell you that their assessment that the truth, quote, truth and freedom movements are a joke is incorrect or inaccurate. I really wish I could say that. It really sticks in my craw to have to admit that they're correct about this. It doesn't make anything that they're doing morally right, okay? I'm not saying that. I'm not saying I agree with what they want to do or what they are doing. I'm telling you that regarding this, they are correct. At least whoever the individual is that suggested that this other Satanist send this image to me, I would suggest he has an accurate understanding of the dynamic. Although he may be on the wrong side, he may be on the evil side, he still understands how it works. He gets it. These people know how natural law works, and they have successfully subverted it. They have successfully made it such that they are basically getting around it. They are bending natural law, not fully breaking it. That's not really possible. But they are bending it to the extent that it is possible to bend it. And that's what we're going to talk about here today, how they successfully accomplish this. This is something a lot of people ask me. If natural law is real, why do these psychopaths continue to get away with what they're getting away with? And I'm going to explain that dynamic today on the show. Why do they continue to get away with what they're doing? And you know what, ladies and gentlemen? I'm going to tell you something that's going to be painful to hear. They're going to continue to get away with it for as long as we refuse to say no to them. It's going to continue, and it's going to ratchet up. It's going to get worse. It's going to get more painful. It's going to get more chaotic. The more people don't understand the objective nature of morality, the objective right and wrong that is inherent to creation, and continue to say yes when these people bark out their orders and expect you to just go along and follow it, the longer that continues, the longer that dynamic stays in place, the longer these people are going to stay in power and continue to be granted their way by the universe. That is how the laws of manifestation work. And the New Age movement doesn't want to tell people this. They want to put this big smoke screen in place that it's all about just feeling a certain feeling or visualizing something. It is about being unified within yourself, such that as you think, so you feel, and so you act. And the people who make the claim that they want freedom, don't have that unity. They're not unified in goodness in the way that the dark occultists who are controlling this game are unified in their evil. And therefore, that evil is always going to triumph. Get as mad about that, get as upset about that, get as offended about that as you want. That's how the laws of manifestation work. And they know it. They know this. And they have us clowned. They have us clowned over it because we don't get it. We don't understand that. That's why we're having our ass handed to us, to put in quite plain and frank terms, in this war. And like I said, get as mad about that as you want. That's how it is. You have people bickering over all the things that divide people, but never talking about natural law. God forbid. That might imply a little bit of personal responsibility. That might imply the willpower in your own self to actually say no, to exert your will. Now, we can't have that. We need to look at what the other guy is saying or doing and try to just punch holes in it, Talk about the littlest, minutest details that this person or that person is doing wrong instead of all the good they have done, and try to create whatever divisiveness they can. In a lot of cases, it isn't, a direct psyop by a disinfo agent. It's just a moron who doesn't know what they're talking about and doesn't understand really what they're doing. They're just an idiot. They can't really think on the level of the laws of cause and effect. They're incapable of thinking on that level. They're incapable of truly assuming real personal responsibility. Otherwise, they'd be doing something profound themselves. They wouldn't be sitting there talking about what someone else is doing. And again, I don't really want to spend too much time on that, on anybody in particular. I'm not going to bring up anybody in particular. I'm talking about the overarching ways that they're going about trying to do anything about this that are completely ineffective. As being an example of what the dark occultists actually feel and think about the, quote, truth and freedom movements, they don't look at it as a threat at all. And I agree with their assessment because it's completely fragmented. It's not unified. People don't understand the causes of what they're experiencing, and therefore they have no power to change them in the long run. The vast majority of these movements actually are still under the erroneous perception and belief system that you're going to be able to change things through politics or voting or a reform of the financial system. They think that there's a political or economic solution to the problems that humanity is beset with. And that in and of itself displays a complete lack of understanding of the laws of manifestation. They're looking for the easy solution. They're looking for the solution that doesn't involve introspection, that doesn't involve true internal change. We'll just rearrange the furniture on the deck of the Titanic and everything will be wonderful. Everything will be fine, you'll see. They don't understand you have to go beyond the realm of effects, of already manifested realities, to change things at the realm of causality. The direction of manifestation is always from that higher realm to the lower realm. It starts in the realm of generation, the realm of causality, and proceeds down to that lower world, the plane of manifested results or the plane of effects. It never operates in the opposite direction. That's what that arrow there to the left is there to demonstrate. And the arrow to the right is to demonstrate that if we want to change what takes place in the plane of effects, we must raise our level of understanding and our consciousness to the plane of causality. Without that, you are powerless. You have no power. You will never create any positive, lasting change, ever. And that's the reason this slide right here, the lack of understanding of what is written on this slide, is the reason why humanity is that clown that dark occultist sent to me. We were talking about the difference between the plane of causes and the plane of effects and how we are never, ever going to change the manifested results that we experience until we raise our consciousness to the level of causality and understand why the manifested experiences that we are living on a day-to-day basis are taking place. Most people will reject that till the day that they die, and that's fine. They obviously want to suffer and love their chains. They love their enslavement. And they will have it. They will have it generously for as long as they stay in that mindset. So the people who are really, truly bringing this on massively are the people who have decided for a whole lot of different reasons to become people who are engaged in the game of control as what they think of as the controllers, the people who actually give orders, when in fact they are the order followers and are the dogs, are the servants, are the actual pets of the dominating, manipulative priest class that is actually running this place. Because we've given up personal responsibility to choose right over wrong and have decided we're going to follow their orders. This is the truth. This is the unspoken truth of humanity that all too brilliantly was put forward in the new Avengers movie I had a chance to check out. And the words of Loki were the most brilliant truth spoken in possibly any film in the last 100 years. The villain once again speaks the truth in the movie. See, this is kind of a little game that they play in Hollywood. They put the biggest piece of wisdom, the biggest piece of truth and knowledge that is irrefutable into the mouth of the psychopathic villain who wants to control and dominate everyone. It's almost done so that you'll dismiss it. Well, look at that crazy person who's told people the truth. You know? It's kind of a psyop in its own right. For anyone who has seen it, they'll know what I'm talking about. There's a scene where Loki, the villain in the Avengers movie, comes forward and you know, he's got this whole crowd at his mercy with his high-tech weaponry, and he's telling people to kneel before him. He commands them all to kneel, and of course they get down on their knees and kneel because all they're concerned about is their physical well-being. So he tells them, he says something to the effect of, isn't this so much simpler? This is the unspoken truth of humanity, that you love your servitude, that it is your very identity, that you love your chains, and that in the end you will always be on your knees. And then someone speaks up and says, not to people like you, men like you, and he says, there are no men like me, and the person responds, there are always men like you. You know, but he's telling people the truth. He tells them also they were created to be servants. And that's an even bigger unspoken truth of humanity, which I won't be getting into today, but maybe in the future. He's telling people in the open, this character in this movie, you know, basically he's telling the people in the audience, looking right out into the audience and telling people the truth about what they are. It's the truth, folks. I wish it wasn't, but it is. Unlike other people, I accept what is. That's the truth. People love their chains. They don't want to think for themselves. They don't want to understand how things work for themselves. They would rather live in the chains that is so easily, the yoke that is so easily placed upon them by their manipulative overlords, because they don't want to think for themselves and they don't want any personal responsibility to do the right thing. But the joke's on them. That's why they're clowned. You can't give away that personal responsibility. It isn't possible. You are always responsible for everything that's manifesting. Always. Whether you're creating consciously or unconsciously, you're the one creating the manifested result, whether you know it or not, and whether you understand how it works or not. Those laws are always in effect. You are always using them. You are always living with them and under them, and you can never give away responsibility for what you're creating. It's not possible. And these individuals on image number 8 believe that they can give away that personal responsibility. As order followers, they believe that they can say, someone else was giving me orders and I had to unquestioningly obey those orders. I had some sort of a moral obligation to obey someone else's orders, even if they were wrong. These are infants, cosmic infants. Infants in consciousness. Ultimately, people who loathe themselves at some fundamental level. And that's what we're going to start talking about in the very near future on this section. Coming up on this section on the non-supportive dominators why we need to stop looking at these people with any respect whatsoever. They're not to be respected. If anything, they're to be pitied because they're so ill. They're so sick. And I mean not just mentally, emotionally, spiritually. These are ill people at every level of being. They are mentally, emotionally, in many cases physically, and the physical brain damage is able to be measured. But most of all, spiritually ill individuals who only want to crave some little portion of domination over others because ultimately they're striving to try to destroy what they hate so much. You know, they want to project themselves out and see themselves in other people and then go and control it because ultimately they hate themselves. We're going to talk about self-loathing more in this section. I'm going to have an entire day, an entire show on trauma and bullying. How these people were often the bullied, not the bullies. They became the bullies because they psychologically identified with their abuser at some point. We're going to look at psychological identification and transference. These are important psychological understandings to have and to really keep in mind when we look at the reasons that motivate these people's behavior, the reasons they have justified in their own mind for their behavior. Identification with abuser or victim. We're going to have an entire show on repressed sexuality. And a complete show on repressed sexuality, particularly repressed homosexuality, because that's another big, huge part of why these people go into these roles. Gigantic part that needs to be understood. And I'm probably going to do a whole show about the utter hatred, the loathing of the inescapability of personal responsibility. That can never be abandoned, and ultimately that's what people want to do more than anything else, is abandon what they can never abandon. You can never get rid of that. It is an impossibility. Under natural law, you cannot abdicate personal responsibility, but this is what people try to do at all turns because they don't want to be an adult. They want to remain this cosmic infant, this cosmic know-nothing. And it's a perfect word. No to nothing. They won't say no to anything. No, nothing. You can't stop someone who has raised their consciousness up to a truly high level and understands the laws that govern our manifested reality. Unfortunately, there is such a small number of them. And it looks like that number really isn't growing too significantly, if I had to be honest about what I see. You know, I try not to blow smoke up people's rear end and give them false hope and tell them everything's going to be okay and everybody's getting it and the world is waking up. I would love to be able to come on here and tell you that. But do I see that actual reality shaping and taking place? I personally do not. I have to be honest about you. And I'm not saying, honest with you, I'm not saying that. I don't come on here and say that to discourage anyone or make people feel bad or tell you shouldn't continue to go forward into truth and speak truth and be an activist or anything like that, that it's all for naught. It's not all for naught. Even if we don't accomplish what we are setting out to accomplish in the physical domain, which is true freedom, doing what we know to be right is victory in and of itself. Because this realm is not the higher realm. Yeah, the evil ones may actually win the physical game, but they're not going to win the game in the higher realm. And they're ultimately going to pay a price for what they do here. I do know that. That's not my belief either. I know those laws exist and they're going to be held accountable. They ultimately know this. They're not fooling themselves. See, in a big way, that clown suit really belongs on them, to be honest. They've ultimately clowned themselves. They think they've clowned us, but ultimately they've clowned themselves. They've played themselves, these dark occultists. They don't understand that it doesn't really make a difference even if they win in this realm at a cosmic level of awareness. Yeah, it's going to actually matter. It's going to affect a lot of people's lives. That experience is real. You could go down to the understanding of that matter actually is only vibratory energy and is not real as such, as a hard physical thing, and it's just pure energy at some fundamental level. But the experience of that realm is real because it takes place in mind, in consciousness, which is real. So ultimately, these people, the joke's ultimately on them. Yes, we're allowing ourselves to be played, but at some higher cosmic level, they're ultimately playing themselves, these dark occultists. The whole maxim of, what does it benefit someone if they gain the whole world and lose their soul? Lose true connection to their higher self, which is what is of real value and real importance. So let's look at their minions, because that's who's really bringing in the dark New World Order, is the minions of these dark occultists, the people who are willing to follow their orders and dictates because they think that they are an authority, that they have to follow the dictates of these psychopathic people. And many of the people in these institutions, such as the military and police, are psychopathic and secondarily psychopathic. It's another reason they gravitate toward an institution that is there to inflict pain. They know that at an intuitive level. What they want to give you some nonsense BS excuses about how they really want to help people. These are people who really want to hurt people. Otherwise, if you wanted to help people, truly wanted to help people, and you really took a look at deeply the best way to help people, you would understand there's only one way to do that, and that's through true education. You have to get to the truth about what's really taking place and educate people about it, and that's the only way you can really be of true assistance and help to the people of this realm. Not by trying to control them, not by trying to create some BS fake form of order that equates to nothing but slavery. You, through your actions, military and police, are putting people into deeper and deeper and deeper chains. And you don't even understand that you're putting your children into deep chains of bondage because of who you're listening to, who you're paying attention to, and who you're ultimately obeying. And I'll tell that right to one of your faces. Right to one of your faces. Because that's the truth. And it doesn't matter that it came from me. It's the truth no matter who spoke it. That's why we're going into a hell world, a prison planet, if you will. That's the very reason. Is because people don't understand you're never going to create any positive change by dealing with the manifested results. You only can create any true, lasting, positive change by raising your consciousness to the plane of causality and then teaching how those laws actually govern and create and generate the manifested results that you're getting. So until you change that way of thinking and ultimately that way of behaving that is generating those results, do not expect those results to change. And this is the fatal, fundamental flaw that the truth and, quote, truth and freedom movements make on a daily basis. They want to rearrange the furniture on the Titanic and expect a different result. They want to do the same thing and expect a different result. You can vote the controllers out of office. You didn't know? Yeah, we just need a reformed monetary policy, and the problems of human consciousness will all evaporate, boom, just like that overnight. Just like that. Yeah, you didn't know that's how it works? And yeah, I'm being sarcastic because, these people are so insane that they actually believe you can do the same thing and get a different result. Which is the actual definition of insanity. That's what a crazy person does. That's what somebody who has lost all mental faculties does. They keep doing the same thing. The same result is given to them over and over and over, and yet they continue to do the same thing, claiming all the while they want a different result and are horribly upset with the result they've already gotten. And yet they continue to do the same thing. It's madness. That's the definition of madness. People say it's not all cops and not all soldiers. You know, this is part of not going far enough in your understanding and thinking that there is no such thing as a blanket statement that can be true. This is part of relativism as it is taught to people, hammered into their heads from the day that they're born. Any statement that starts with all or always is automatically false in a lot of people's minds. And that's not the case. There are some blanket statements that are totally true, and that there are some blanket statements that are not true, that are made by ignorant people. You can't just say someone who says all or always or everyone is automatically incorrect, because that's not the case. There are some instances where you can say all, every, always, every time, everyone, and it be an accurate statement. There are some things that are absolute. Truth is absolute. So by definition, if you are taking the role of an order follower and you're saying, I'm going to do what I'm told, by definition, you have abandoned conscience. Every person who does that, not some, not a few, not most, all people who have done that have abandoned conscience. Every person who steps into the role of an order follower has abandoned the exercise of their own conscience, of conscience. I don't even want to say their own conscience. Strike that. Of conscience itself. Conscience is the same for everyone. There is no my conscience, your conscience, his conscience, her conscience. There is only conscience, common knowledge. That's what the word means. Con, meaning together, with, or common, and science, from scio sciere in Latin, meaning to know, to understand, knowledge. Common sense, common knowledge. Knowledge that is true for everyone, that is the same for everyone. That's what conscience is. The definitive understanding of the difference between right and wrong, objectively. And these people have abandoned this knowledge. They don't want it. They don't want the personal responsibility that goes on with the taking in of the knowledge of conscience, of common sense. Therefore, they want to give away their powers of mental judgment and behavior, okay, of control over their behavior to someone else. Here, you have the reins on my behavior. You tell me what to do. That is, by definition, the abandonment of conscience. And no one can refute that. That is the definition of it. We're talking about the diametric opposition, the polar antithesis of being an order follower and being one who exercises conscience. These two things cannot exist simultaneously. They are diametrically opposed. One is the exact opposite of the other. People don't want to accept that truth. They want to believe you can go into an institution that is all about the following of orders and still be a person that exercises conscience. And that's an impossibility. It doesn't exist. It never has existed. It never will exist. By definition, it cannot exist. But because people's mindset is clouded and has been bombarded with these notions of respect and admiration for this control class, they actually believe that these are people of conscience, that they could be people of conscience. Maybe they could have conscience and exercise it in their daily lives, not operating as one of these controllers. But as soon as that role is taken up and you're saying, I will follow orders, you have abandoned conscience. So in that role, you cannot have conscience and be following it. actually be exercising it. It is not a possibility. I don't know if people are even capable of comprehending this. I think that most people literally have been dumbed down to such a degree that it's not even possible for them to comprehend that basic philosophy. Conscience is doing what you know to be right. Following orders is just that. Taking an order from another and then doing the action, regardless of whether the order is right or not. That's what an order follower is. Somebody who unthinkingly acts because they've given up their logical processing, thinking, critical thinking capabilities and said, you just tell me what to do. That's the definition of order following. Which is why we have to get our mindset out of the respect for this modality of unconsciousness. It is unworthy and undeserving of any respect whatsoever. It is deplorable and loathsome and should be avoided at all costs and should be pointed out as something that is horrible. This is how bad people think and behave. It is the hallmark of bad thinking and bad behavior, doing what you're told. You shouldn't do anything because you were told to do it. You should do anything because you know it to be the correct and moral thing to do, and it will not generate chaos in your life or anyone else's. Slide number 10, people should just put this on their screen, blow it up as big as you can, and contemplate it for hours, if that's what it takes. That's the result of following orders, period. This is what order following gets you in life and always has brought us. Now, regardless of where that picture was taken, it could have been taken in a concentration camp in Russia or in Germany or in Poland. Ultimately, this is an archetypal image that shows people this is going to be the result if you refuse to say no to order following. And if you refuse to say no to the people who think they have a right to just follow orders unquestioningly. Both groups of people need to say no. Humanity, who is being accosted and having their rights devoured by these unthinking people who think they have rights that they don't. And those people themselves need to develop enough self-respect for themselves to come forward and say no to their owners, who look at them as dogs. That's another thing that's going to be coming up on the show. After I go through all the physical things and the worldly aspects of this, even the philosophical ones as well, okay, of why these people act the way they act, I'm then going to, before we go to the two shows on taking calls on this, I'm going to go to the occult aspects of this, the dark occult aspects of how the occultists view their order followers. And you would think, oh, they love them and want them always to be around, and they couldn't get done what they're going to get done without them, and so they're going to treat them with respect, and nothing could be farther from the truth. They loathe them more than they loathe the general population. They call them their dogs, their pets. That's their name for them. And I'm going to show you all the ways they ritualistically, through symbolism, symbolically mock the beings that they call their pets, the military and the police. At every turn, they're being viciously, wickedly mocked. But never through direct words. Sometimes it's not true. Very occasionally through their actual words of this psychopathic class. But it's much less frequent that it's ever done verbally. It's always done symbolically and ritualistically. That's how they love to tell people what they think of them. Through a symbol or an image. Okay? The excuse, the justification, the moral justification that I was just following orders is never a valid excuse or justification for immoral criminal behavior and should never be accepted by anyone as such. That's the problem, is too many people are willing to say, well, it's not the police and military's doing, they're just following their orders, as if that makes it okay. See, it's justification, the process of creating a right that does not exist, creating a right, making up what is right, saying that's okay, that's right, you're allowed to do that. It's okay that you did that. And it's never right. It's never a justification. It can never be made into right. It's always wrong. So I was just following orders should never be accepted as a valid justification for immoral behavior. These people are doing criminal behavior when they abuse rights or harm other people by thinking that they have rights which they do not possess, that no one possesses. So here's the question I want to leave people with for the day, okay? And this is something I want to talk a little bit more about at the top of the next show, but I would like people to, here's a homework assignment for the show, for this show, okay? For the listeners and the people listening on podcast, here is a homework assignment. Start this discussion among anyone you are acquainted with or are affiliated with, your family members, your friends, co-workers, whoever you can begin this conversation with. Ask this question. First of all, you should think about this question very deeply, contemplate it. Here's another slide you should put up on the screen and think about this, the answer to this question for hours. Who is more morally culpable? And culpability means who is at fault. Who is the one who made the mistake? Who is the one who can be blamed for the negative consequences or repercussions of that behavior having been taken? That's what it comes from, the Latin noun culpa, which means fault or blame in the Latin language. That's where culpable comes from, meaning able to be blamed. There is such a thing as fault. See, the New Age movement, this complete fabricated consciousness, quote consciousness movement called the New Age movement, wants to tell people there's no such thing as blame. No one's to blame. It's nobody's fault. No one actually did the harm. There's no harm done. No one's at fault. Nobody's to blame. Go back to sleep, children. You can never point a finger and say, I didn't act like that. You did. You created the chaos. You created the harm. You created the suffering. You got to be honest. Are you involved? Are you actually doing harm too? And if you're not, I would say you need to call somebody out on their crap, on their junk that they don't have a right to be doing. So who's more morally culpable or at fault? The order giver or the order follower? And I would say, without any hesitation, it's always the order follower who bears the brunt of the moral culpability.
Our questions. It was a one-on-one session over a couple of brews with Mark Passio.
That's right.
I wouldn't have passed. I wouldn't have passed that up for dinner with the top of the food chain, Mark, at their New York finery. But thank you for taking my call. It was such a wonderful time. Freeman Fly was there.
Yeah.
He came up from South Carolina.
That's right. Freeman and Jamie, they were both there. It was just awesome afterward because, again, you could relax with the formalities of a formal presentation and just relate to people as an individual and as friends, as people who are all trying to get the same thing accomplished. So that was probably my favorite part of the whole evening and the whole weekend. And like I was saying before, I feel that there were teachers who were there. There were people who are teaching this information, not just coming and hearing about it and learning about it themselves. They're at the point where they're getting ready to transition and start teaching this information. And that's what gave me a lot of hope at the Asheville seminar. I think it was really great and rejuvenating, for me to see that amongst the people who attended. And as I told people last week, I did recover the audio. The audio sounds good. it wasn't audio recorded at the computer on the stage, but it was recorded through a microphone through the air. But it was good quality, a good quality recorder, obviously. And I am working on the video as we speak, so that should be forthcoming within hopefully a couple of weeks at the most. My video editing skills are not the sharpest or the fastest, but I trudge my way through it, and I'll get a decent video out there within a reasonable amount of time. So look for that at least within the next month.
Yes, our good new friend Steve from Florida saved the day.
Yes, he did.
And what a great person.
He's going to be a teacher of this information. He already really is. I mean, what a great guy, you know. You could just tell by talking to him how genuine he was, and that's the same dynamic I got from everybody there. They're not only hungry for this information, they're hungry to start presenting it to other people. That's what we need more of. Absolutely.
Yes, more voices out there just doing whatever they can, posting a blog on one of the Blogspot or WordPress.com, going on to the radio shows, like Blog Talk, of course, is my venue, but there's TalkShoe. Everybody, guys, get out there, get your voices out there, speak natural law as you know it. It is worthwhile. Mark, any determination on these psychopaths? What's driving the psychopath?
Well, like I was saying, they want everybody to be as miserable as they are. There's a great Carlos Castaneda quote, regardless of what anyone thinks of Castaneda, because he put out allegories as kind of like, real life stories. But I personally really like his work, and I think it's the underlying philosophical messages in the work that are important, not what the actual condition was. This is where people always get hung up. Was he really there with this guy? Was he a real guy? Is he making it up? Folks, he's putting the philosophical understanding into an allegorical work of fiction, and there's nothing wrong with doing that. Okay? You could get all on his case because he may have passed it off as an actual series of events, but whatever. Does the work stand on its own for the value it's trying to teach people? And I feel that it does. And he talks about the predator mindset the Don Juan character talks about. Maybe I'll try to find that during one of the breaks and read it to people, because it's all about the condition of psychopathy and how these controllers try to propagate it.
I have two brief questions.
Sure.
The first question is, so these people with this occulted knowledge,
mm-hmm.
they understand natural law and they understand how it works.
Right.
And if that's the case, why would they try to do such great evil to humanity, knowing that they're going to get a spiritual kick in the butt at some later time?
I have answered this question before on previous What on Earth is Happening podcasts, but it is very important. Okay? The answer is they are not the ones doing the evil, ultimately. The ones who are really controlling the dynamic are issuing the orders to other individuals to carry them out by following their orders. The order followers are the ones who are doing this with their behavior, with their actions to the people of humanity. They are the ones who actually accomplish the task. So that is the answer. How do they think that they are going to escape from the brunt of the karmic consequences of natural law? Because they're not the ones actually performing the actions. Order followers are, namely the police and the military. The people who are going to take upon their life force, upon their soul, the deepest karmic consequence when it comes to natural law consequences are the people who actually do the violent actions that they have no right to perform against other individuals. And those individuals throughout history have been the dupes, the pawns, the dogs of these individuals who do understand how this works. And that is how they are insulating themselves from those consequences, because they're not the ones doing them. All they're doing is moving their lips. They're writing things down on paper, typing at a keyboard, moving their lips. What are they actually physically doing? Has anybody been hardcore assaulted by David Rockefeller or the Rothschild recently? They wielded any M4 rifles at anybody's head of late? I don't see that happening. And I'm not making excuse for their level of evil. Please don't see it as such. I'm just answering, if they understand how natural law operates, how are they insulating themselves against the negative effects of it? By continuing to propagate evil. It's because they're not actually taking the actions. Other people take the actions, and then the consequences get brought down upon those individuals for the most part. It's not to say that there aren't going to be any consequences for the kind of false ideas that they've propagated. There are consequences for them. They've chosen those less severe consequences because I've told people this before. Ladies and gentlemen, listen very carefully to what I'm about to say. Okay? If I had to choose, if someone, let's say the creator of the universe somehow manifested itself and said, you must choose, and you have no choice in the matter, you must choose between these two eventualities. You will go into the body or into the place of one of the psychopathic world controllers who has actually tried to wield influence in this world and convince other people to do their bidding. Okay? Or you must go into the body or into the place of one of the people who followed their orders and actually committed those wrongdoings without asking the question, is this something that I should be doing because it's morally right and I have a right to do it? In a heartbeat, I'd take the situation where I would go into the body or in the place of the world controller. In a heartbeat, without even thinking about it for a second. Because the brunt of the karmic consequence is always going to be the strongest, the deepest, the darkest for the individual who carries out the action. And no one wants to hear that spoken. No one, you want to talk about one of the most painful things there ever is to hear. It's what I just laid out right there, folks. It's why they call it a police state. They don't call it a banker state, folks. They don't call it a politician state, nor is it called a lawyer state or a judge state, okay? Or a corporation state. It's called a police state, a totalitarian closed society. For a reason. It's called that because those are the people who ultimately make it happen, who ultimately create that actuality playing out in life experience. Without those people taking those actions, that actuality cannot form, cannot manifest in reality. Get it through your heads, ladies and gentlemen. That's how the laws of karmic consequence work. And these controllers know it. And they've done a masterful job of getting other people to do their dirty work for them. And they continue to do it. They continue to just absolutely lick the rear end of these lunatic psychopaths. We were talking to Alex in New Hampshire before the break. He asked the question about, if the controllers of this world understand natural law and know that it's in effect, why do they try to break it and disobey it? And my answer was, they really don't. They get people to do that dirty work for them. And just as one addendum to what I said before the break, I just want to make this statement on the air in no uncertain terms, very equivocally. The most evil people in this world are not the people who issue the commands. The most evil people in this world are those who follow them. Order followers are the depths of evil, ladies and gentlemen. Get as offended as you like, scream and bang on the walls, cry in your milk. I don't care what you think of that statement. It's the truth. I'm not here to blow smoke up your rear end. I'm not here to make you feel good about the truth. The truth is ugly. I'm not here to win a popularity contest or have you like me. It's not why I do this. Believe me, if I just wanted to be liked, I'd be telling people what they wanted to hear all day long. The most evil people in this world are people who follow other people's orders. I don't care if those orders are high-minded with the best of intentions and even possibly in alignment with morality. It wouldn't even matter if they were if the orders were in alignment with morality. To just blindly follow is still an evil act, because you are giving up the gift of the Creator, free will. Free will to choose for yourself right action over wrong action, once you clearly understand the difference. There is no conscience in following any order. Any order, no matter how well intentioned. Conscience does not exist within that being, because conscience is the knowledge of the definitive difference between objective moral behavior and objective immoral behavior. The objective difference between those two modalities of behavior. And as long as somebody is following orders, they're not exercising their conscience, by definition. It's a hodgepodge. Again, it's a hierarchy. A hierarchy that's built upon order following, built upon doing things that you are asked without question, because you will receive favors in return, protecting your brothers in the network, your compatriots within the network, and it's a spider's web of interconnectivity. That's what we have to understand, that it's no one particular group. It is a group of psychopathic entities that have all come together. They've all said, we can't accomplish this dark work on our own. We have to come together and say, we're going to work together toward this end goal, toward this end game. And that's what they do. They're very effective at putting their minds together. They call it, in the dark occult, a mastermind. Literally, this is their name for this construct. Okay? When we consider the term mastermind, people think one person and they're the big planner and everybody else follows them. That's not what a mastermind is in the dark occult world. A mastermind is a group of individuals that are focused intently on the same work. They come together, they form one large mind, okay? All focused on that end goal, that end game. And they will let nothing deter them from their path. They're unified in how they think, in the methodologies they're going to use to accomplish that goal. They're unified in their dark form of care. It isn't empathic care, but it's focused intent. It's saying, I care about getting this done so much. This is what I want more than anything else. More than anything else in life. And that's a form of care. I call it dark care, because it's not really empathic care. It's not emotion-based care. It's just, I care so much about getting this done, I'm going to make it my ultimate goal. And I'm going to focus all my energy on it, no matter what it takes. So they have that as well. So they have the intellect, they have care in the form of dark care, and they have the will to act. And they're unified on those fronts. So the universe is going to respect entities like that, even if they're dark and evil. Because if they're unified and their thoughts, emotions, and actions are working on the same page toward the same goal, on a focused effort, then the universe is going to grant them what they want, even if it's something that's bad for other people. And people can't comprehend that. They get angry at me for saying that. How could you say the universe is going to give them what they want? Easy. Because they're unified and we're not. The universe respects unity consciousness, even if that unity consciousness happens to be dark unity consciousness. It's going to respect unity over divisiveness. And that's why they're on the same page. They're working as a tight-knit unit for the same goals. We're all over the place. The side of freedom and good and order is all over the place, scattered to the four winds of the earth, can't get together over the basics, which is natural law. But the question about these paradigms is, of course, both of these paradigms are leading humanity to the same place. That's why it's called a dialectic. They basically are opposames that lead to the same place. People think that they're so different. They think, oh, I'm a Christian, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Jew. I'm so different than all of those believers in Darwinian evolution. And then people say, oh, I'm a scientist in a white lab coat. I'm so different than those people who believe in religion. No, you're not. You're both kidding yourself. You're both pranksters. You're jokesters. Okay? You're both played. You're played. Okay? You're both going to the same place, and it's called slavery because of how you think. You're puppets on strings. And not only are you puppets on strings by buying into these polarizing dialectics, you believe that you're puppets on strings by the very nature that you have accepted those polarizing dialectics. And you know what the Satanists of this world are doing? You know what the dark occultists are doing? You know what the powers that be are doing? They're laughing their asses off at you. They're laughing with big, out-of-control belly laughs nonstop, and I'm telling you, I've heard them do it. From their lips to my ears, I've been in rooms with them laughing at you. And you just keep going on believing in your absolute BS nonsense religion on both sides of that equation. Okay? Because you're being mocked. You're being mocked. And you don't even know you're being mocked. One day on the air, I don't think it'll be today, but when I develop, maybe I'll practice it off air and try to get it just right. I'm going to try to do the laugh that a Satanist unleashed in my presence one time at a ritual here on the East Coast at Walpurgisnacht. And he was mocking a cop who was watching the ritual house outside the house, okay? And protecting all of these Satanists, an armed off-duty police officer who was a member of this satanic cult. Coven, they don't call them covens, they call them grottos in Satanism. And this dark occultist who was smoking a cigar, and he was wearing a suit, and he was eating some hors d'oeuvre that they had served after the ritual, was looking outside the window through this kind of like semi-octagonal or hexagonal enclosure in the front of this house. He was looking over at the patio where this cop was standing watch at the door. And he was laughing so hard that his face became red and engorged with blood, and I thought he was going to choke on the food that he was eating. And that's how much he was mocking and laughing at this cop, calling him a complete unconscious idiot, for serving the satanic agenda, our agenda, as he said, okay? And just said, these people are our pets. They're our dogs. They're our animals on a leash. And that's exactly how they look at people. And you know what? As I've said before, people can say, oh, Mark, you're in such a dark worldview for even saying something like this. They're correct. They're not incorrect. I'm not telling you I agree with their approach or their worldview or the way they think. I'm just telling you they're correct. They are their pets, their dogs, their animals that just follow them, whatever they tell them to do. That's it. And the people who believe in these completely imbalanced worldviews are really no different. They're just absolute puppets on a string. And they've been given their belief systems by these psychopaths. They've been given their very belief systems by these psychopathic lunatics. Ladies and gentlemen, I have found a representation of the laugh of the Satanist that I was talking about. And it's not exact, but it's probably it's close enough in spirit to how I heard a Satanist laughing at the police, the military, the mindless masses of the world because of how on their puppet strings, through mind control, through the belief in their very systems of belief that they have people. And I haven't really tried this. I'm going to just try to play it over the air. I don't have a mechanism for just, digitally playing this, but I think it'll translate through my condenser microphone. If not, maybe I'll give it to my producer and he could play it or put it somehow into the show where we could cue it maybe next week if it doesn't translate very well. But here goes. I'm going to try this for the first time and see how this translates over the air. This is as close as I could find in a short amount of time to the belly laugh that I heard a Satanist do at a ritual. This was probably back, I would have to guess, it was probably around 1996 or 7 or 8 or something like that. And again, he was laughing at a police officer, an off-duty cop who was guarding the ritual room, or guarding the ritual house, I should say. Okay, here goes. This is a Satanist's belly laugh, laughing at someone who they call their dog. Like I said, that about sums it up in spirit. It may not have been exact, but it's close enough. And I'm telling you, that's how hard they're laughing at most people out there.